You've got your idea, you want to turn it into a business now and start making a living from it. How do you do that? Well, in this video, I'm going to lay out some of the key things to think about before you get your startup off the ground. But before I go into it, please don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel where you'll get more content like this to help you with your startup. And also in the comments box, there's a link there so that you can go to our website and find out more what RJF Accountants can do for your startup. But also there's a link there where you can book a call with me at a time that's convenient for you if you want to discuss anything that you see in this video that you want more information on, or anything else in terms of startup and your accounting needs. So you've got the idea now and you want to turn it into a business. What are some of the things you need to think about? Well, first of all, and it's the main thing that I always say to anyone who comes to me with a business idea, is do your research. Because that idea that you've got in your head may sound amazing, but in the real world, there is no demand for it. So before you start getting into raising money and setting up a company and getting people involved with it and buying product or doing anything, do your research. Spend time in doing your research. This is a valuable thing to do. And you can do things like market research, find out if there is a demand for your product or your service. You know, the invention that you've got may be great in your mind, but is there a real demand for it? Before you do anything, always do the research and make sure there is a demand for what you want to offer. So once you've done that, then you've got to think about how you get that into a startup. So what type of structure are you going to have? And when I mean structure, do you set up a limited company? How do you do that? Is it a sole trader? What is a sole trader? Do you set up a partnership if you're in business with someone? There are different kind of structures to use, and this video isn't going to go into all the detail of them because there is a lot of detail to consider, but of course you can book a call with me if you want to discuss what structure would suit you best. But there are different advantages to it, and there are some risks and disadvantages to the different structure. But you do need to think about how you're going to structure this business for it to generate money, because there's things you're going to have to think about in terms of tax and compliance and things like that, and also, you know, what a limited liability is and how that can protect you if you've got a business and you're providing a product or service. So, you know, there's lots of things you need to think about. So think about that structure and how you want to run your business and in what type of environment in terms of a limited company, sole trader, partnership, and all the different sort of benefits and risks of each one. So once you've decided what that structure is, how do you go about setting it up? Well, a limited company can be set up on Companies House quite easily, really. It's not inexpensive to do. We do it for free for clients of ours. But if you want to go down the sole trader route, then you have to register with HMRC as a sole trader. If you go into business with someone and want to do a partnership, which is not a limited company, there are different types of partnerships, like a limited liability partnership or just a standard partnership. Again, you register with HMRC to do those. And as I mentioned before, I can't go into all the detail, the pros and cons of them, because there's a lot to consider. But to set those up, that, you know, all of them are pretty easy to set up. With a limited company, there's a bit more. You know, you've got to think of a name, something that hasn't been used before, and you can easily do that. Check on Companies House. You can just Google Companies House and it'll come up, and you can see if the name that you want to use is available. We'd also recommend, you know, even if you go down the sole trader route or the partnership route, always have a separate bank account. And I'll come on to the sort of the accounting and bookkeeping things, which are really important. But, you know, go and get a business bank account. I see it quite a lot. People sort of use a personal account to do businesses, and then it can all get messy. And I'll touch on why, you know, this is really critical in terms of the accounting and bookkeeping. But it's always good to get a separate business account. So either get a sole trader account if that's the route you go down, or a partnership is a route you go down. A limited company, set up a limited company bank account. Limited company bank accounts at the moment can be quite hard to open. There are some that we would recommend. So again, you can come to me and find out if you want some recommendations on what are some good bank accounts to open. But yeah, always keep it separate. Don't use your personal account in the first instance to do that. But then that comes on to the next point, is about accounting. And yes, we're accountants and we know what is needed for that, but a lot of people don't really consider it, and they just want to go gun-ho with the idea. And it's really important that you have that foundation of good accounting in place, and not just because it's compliance and tax and you do your annual filings and returns, and that's okay, that's all done, and yes, it makes an accountant's life easier if you have good records. But from your own perspective, having good records is really important. Good bookkeeping, good accounting systems, and that's where we can help on that front. We can set up, very cheap and effective solutions. There's lots of software now online. Certainly 5-10 years ago, it would have been a lot more difficult, but now there's lots of solutions to help. So even if you're doing an e-com business, there's good integrations with accounting software, but anything. We can help you set up systems at a relatively low cost to keep track of things. And why is it important? Why is it super important to do that? Well, it's no coincidence that those businesses that are successful, or those entrepreneurs that you perhaps follow on social media that are really successful, they'll always have a good handle on their numbers. You don't need to be an accountant. You don't need to understand how that profit and loss is prepared or your balance sheet's prepared, but they will have a good handle on what those numbers are showing them and the performance of the business. And so it's critical that you do have a good foundation for the accounting, because you can see early warning signs if things aren't going to plan. Are your costs too high? Do you need to look at increasing your margins? What costs are running out of control? When you do your annual accounts, bear in mind you've got 12 months to do them, and then after the year end, you've got 9 months before you file them, and typically people will leave it last minute. So it's 18 months before you actually see how your performance of the business has been. So it's kind of irrelevant because that's gone. You've not been able to do anything to react to it. So having a good accounting process, good bookkeeping, good reporting, good monitoring is super critical. So that's something you need to have a think about in terms of the performance and monitoring that business. Because at the end of the day, your business idea is there to make money so that you have a living from it, and you need to know if it is going to give you a living. So that's a real critical point too. Other things to consider, if you're going into business with someone, we see this often with startups, you're in that honeymoon period, everything's great, you never think you're going to fall out. Inevitably, when money's starting to be made in the business, we see problems, from experience. I've had that experience myself. So I think it's always good to get everything formalized right at the beginning. And if it's a limited company, shareholder agreements, super important. I always come across this a lot when startups and they don't have anything between them. If you're doing a partnership, then have a partnership agreement in place. And again, if you want some help and support on that, you can feel free to book a time in with me, and I can discuss what are some things which you need to consider in those things. But yeah, it's really, if you are going in business with someone, with a friend, a business partner, have it formalized, have it legalized, have everything in place right at the beginning, because it just saves a hell of a lot of problems down the line. But I think overall, they're just some of the things, and that's from my experience, to look out for. There are other things to consider as well, but again, we could go on forever in this video about all those things. But they were some of the key things that I think are really, really important to consider when you get your startup, and how to get it up and running and off the ground. And I think overall, the main thing is enjoy it. It's got to be something that you enjoy. If you don't enjoy it, it's never going to be a success. So enjoy the process, enjoy the business, and just have a think about those things that I've mentioned before you actually kick off your idea. I think the one most fundamental thing is do the research. That my first point is really do your research and make sure there is demand before you go into anything in terms of your business and startup. So if you want to discuss anything more, if you feel like you wanted some more advice on how to get your startup off the ground, go to our comments box. There's a link there where you can book a time in with me at a time that's convenient for you. It's a free call, no obligation, no fees, nothing like that. Just a quick chat on some personal experience and advice on how to get your startup off the ground.